Coming up on iOS today, Rosemary Orchard and sort of me, but mostly Rosemary because she's the automation expert, show you some ways to automate your third-party apps with shortcuts. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by Sennheiser. Why settle for anything less than great sound? Come hear the difference with Sennheiser. Right now, for my first 100 listeners who go to Sennheiser.com/podcast and use promo code iOS, you'll receive 15% off the Momentum True Wireless 2 earbuds or any of their amazing headphones. And this podcast is supported by AT&T Active Armor. We rely so much on our phones these days and are always on them, whether it's live streaming content, catching up with family on weekly video calls, or watching your favorite podcast. There's no room for fraud calls. Thankfully, AT&T makes customer security a priority, helping block those pesky calls. It's not complicated. AT&T Active Armor, 24/7 proactive network security and fraud call blocking to help stop threats at no extra charge. Compatible device and service required. Visit att.com/activearmor for details. And by Casper. When it comes to a better night's sleep, Casper's new cooling collection has you covered. Focus on tomorrow. Let Casper handle the rest. Explore Casper's products, mattresses, sheets, pillows, and more at casper.com/iOS today and use code iOS today for $100 off select mattresses. Whoa, hello, and welcome to iOS Today. It just occurred to me that the people who listen to this show instead of watch the show are probably wondering why the heck I make that sound every time. And so if you've never watched the show, then you would not know that there's this little swiping action that takes place. And so I'm just pretending to be brought into the screen because it's acting, and we do that on this show. This show is iOS Today. It is a show where we talk all things iOS, tvOS, watchOS, HomePod OS, iPad OS, all the OSs Apple has on offer all the time. And we are pumped to be bringing you everything you need to know and then some. I am one of your hosts, Micah Sargent.
And I am Rosemary Orchard.
Hello, Rosemary. How you doing?
I'm excited. You suggested this episode, and then I kind of got very carried away in the outline. So we've got a lot. We may end up cutting some of these as we go through, just because we're going to run out of time. But that means that we can come back in the future, because I love automation, and I feel like a lot of people don't realize that automation is something that's very easy to use and incredibly beneficial, even on something as small as an iPhone mini.
Aha, yes. New iPhone minis even. So let's talk about, this episode, if you are listening and you're going, oh, they're doing automation, that sounds difficult. Don't run away. What we're doing here is showing you ways to use the apps you already have and the integrations that Apple and the developers have already set up to make your apps more powerful. And it starts by going into the Shortcuts app. And if you hit the plus sign at the top of the Shortcuts app, and I'll switch here right quick to my iPad, and then you choose apps, all of the different apps that show up, this is what we're talking about, the different integrations that are available for different apps with shortcuts that let you get more out of them. So Rosemary has picked some to talk about today. And Rosemary, what is your first automation that you want to talk about?
Well, my first pick is one that I actually use every single day. I use this when I go to sleep because for some reason, sometimes I struggle to fall asleep at night. And one of the things that I really love to do is have some rain sounds. And I've tried other things. I've tried things like air purifiers, stuff like that. For whatever reason, it doesn't work. So I use rain sounds to fall asleep. And so I do this, and I actually have this set up in the Health app. And I'm going to show you where that is in a moment. But inside of the Shortcuts app, I'm just going to search for my shortcut. And you can see right here, it's called Rain to Sleep. So what it does is, to start with, it checks my Wi-Fi network. And if my Wi-Fi network is my home Wi-Fi network, and that's called the promised LAN because I like puns, then it sets my playback destination to my bedroom HomePod Mini. Okay, so this is right by my bed. And then it starts my custom rain sound with this great app called Dark Noise. So now whenever I say, hello, Apple lady, rain to sleep, this is what happens. Okay. Or I can tap an NFC tag that's by my bed to trigger this. Or I can even do this from my lock screen. Because what I've done is inside the Health app, I've set this up as a shortcut. And I bet, Micah, a lot of our listeners don't know that in the Health app, you can set up shortcuts which appear on your home screen when your iPhone is in sleep mode, so that then you can just with a quick tap access a few things like a couple of different apps or some shortcuts, which can be incredibly useful. So for example, jotting down things that are on your mind overnight and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to show people how you can do that. So I'm going to hopefully remember how to type health because I'm having one of those days where spelling is apparently hard. So inside the Health app, you can see I didn't sleep all that much last night. That's okay. I'm going to catch up this weekend. So in my sleep section right here, you can go down, see your schedule and all sorts of things and about your sleep. And then you can see at the bottom, there's things like showing your sleep schedule and so on. And then there are some options. And you want to make sure that this is all turned on and ready for you, okay? Because if this isn't turned on, then this sleep function isn't going to work. And I'm just going to scroll back up because I think I have overshot for whatever reason, I believe, Micah, I found an iOS 15 bug. Haha. The shortcuts are not here. For sleep mode. This is, of course, typical because I checked this on another iPhone beforehand. So I am just going to double check here on this iPhone.
This is another good reason to have a second iPhone so that you can
exactly
current version.
So in the Health app, if you've never set up sleep before, then you'll want to go through and confirm this, set it up. So setting a sleep goal, that's how long you should be sleeping for each night. The ideal times, you can have different schedules. So for example, if you have to work very early during the week, but you don't need to go to sleep as early at the weekends, then you can have different schedules for that. And then you want to enable sleep mode here. And you'll see on my screen just then, it switched from a light to a dark mode. And there's this little lozenge in the middle. And this lozenge is for this section. So you have wind down shortcuts. And then here you can set up wind down shortcuts. And it's suggesting rain to sleep because I had this set up on another iPhone. So I'm just going to confirm that and tap done. And now if we go into my full schedule and options, you can see wind down and wind down shortcuts. And wind down shortcuts are what you want. So there are several options here. There's things from music. There's things from different podcasts. Reading, if you've got the Kindle app installed, that shows up there as well. Wrapping up your day, so being able to take notes and check calendars, things like that. Also, home scenes. You can see there's 73 options here. And also, there's other options here with showing, you can look into journaling, mindfulness, yoga, and stretching, other apps. And then you can also just go through other apps as well. And, depending on how many apps you've got installed, there are plenty of options. But once you've added one of these shortcuts here, then it shows up on your home screen. So I am just going to put my phone into sleep mode. And I will lock it and unlock it. And you can see here now, it says do not disturb. And then there's this shortcuts button right here. You can see my alarm is set, so I could change it or skip it if I tap on that. But if I tap rain to sleep, it's going to start playing rain in my bedroom. And that's just going to happen automatically. And that is just one of the great things that you can do with shortcuts, because then you can have things like this show up on your home screen when you need them, but then they won't sit around when you don't need them. And so that's one of the features that I really do love about this. I'm just going to take this out of sleep mode because, as people can see, it's 7:23 in the evening. It's not time for a nap yet. We've got more of iOS today to go.
Too bad. Not time for a nap. Yeah, dark noise is certainly one that makes my list. It's fantastic for all of the different sounds that it provides. And as you've shown, the different integrations and automations that it has are kind of incredible. So I am not surprised that that makes the list. In fact, as we were talking about this, I said that I would sprinkle in just a couple as you were talking. And I said I wouldn't take dark noise from you because I knew you would want to talk about that one. Tell us about this next one, a journaling app that many people might be familiar with.
Yeah, so a lot of people will probably know about journaling, and some people might even recently have heard this week that Automatic has purchased Day One. And Day One is still a great application. It's still going to continue to work the same way. So we don't need to worry about that. Everything's going to continue. But one of the great things that Day One has got going for it, as well as all of the automation that it's got built into it with things like connecting to Instagram and so on, wherever it can, then if we check into the app section and scroll down to Day One, have a look at all of those actions. Okay, I've got an iPhone 12 Pro Max, and that is a full screen of actions right there. And so you can set up a whole bunch of things. So, for example, answering a daily prompt, you could have it up. You can set that up inside the app, your daily prompt, and then it will come up with that. Or you can build your own shortcut depending on the day of the week to ask you different questions. So you could, for example, get every single calendar event in your calendar for today, go through each of them, and then say, hey, how was this? Format a note and then save it into Day One. You can record things straight into Day One. You can show a summary. You can show on this day. And that's what I really like because then you can insert, oh gosh, there's a beta 2 bug right here. Cool. You can insert the current date. Usually I'll just type in today for now, and that will do. And then it would come up with everything from today. And I love Day One just because it really, as well as everything else that it's got going for it, which is so many great things, it has all of this wonderful support. You can find entries, you can edit entries, everything basically is available to you from Shortcuts as well as in the app, which means if you wanted an integration to be able to go through and, put several things together. So as you're getting ready to go to bed, maybe it starts a certain playlist for you, it dims the lights, and then it opens this up to answering your daily prompt. You can do that. And that's one of the things that, makes Day One stand out from a lot of the other journaling apps.
Cool. Day One is, popular enough for its acquisition, for one thing. But I know, a lot of people where other apps had failed them to kind of get them to stick to journaling. Day One seems to really hit the nail on the head there, which I find interesting. This next one is one of those apps that it's purpose built to involve automation, to involve these integrations. And so I am not surprised that it makes your list for sure.
Yes. Well, my next app, which I'm sure some of you have heard about before, and it's one that Micah doesn't get, to quote him. And that's totally okay.
Out. It's true.
It's totally okay. That's one of the reasons why I'm saying it, because some people don't necessarily, know what the purpose of drafts is for them. So drafts, just to give people a bit of history, the idea is you open it up, and every time you open it up, and I'm going to open it up right now on my iPhone, and I've done that with a shortcut. Surprise, surprise. It opens, like this. Okay, so I've got a custom theme, so mine's slightly. It's a light gray with purple icons. But, and now the idea is it opens like this and I type. Okay. And then the next time I open drafts, I get a blank draft and I type. And I don't lose what I've typed. Okay. Everything is right here. You can see I've got lots of notes going. I've even got things like workspaces. So I can see, for example, iOS Today. I was doing a little experiment with doing some preparation for iOS Today in here. I realized I was better off just doing it straight in Google Sheets, which is why I'm not really doing a lot there. But, it's just a very good application for very quickly allowing you to grab and manipulate text And I should have shown people, of course, things don't live here. What you can do is then send it off to all kinds of things. So you could save what you've written into day one or into reminders or the calendar, or send it off as an email or a text message. It means that you can, it's kind of a different way of thinking. One of those things that I've often struggled with is I start writing down something in, say, a task manager, and then I realize this would be a very quick thing to just do right now, right at this very second. So I actually don't want to write it into my task manager anymore. I need to put it into, for example, a text message. And anybody who has, tried to select text and so on iOS and selected chunks of it to copy knows it can be a little bit fiddly. And there are some things you can do to help with that, like tapping and holding on the space bar. That's what I'm doing here. And then, if you move your thumb or finger around the keyboard, then you move the cursor. That's fine. But the purpose of drafts is just capture text and then deal with it afterwards. And to that end, it's got a lot of great shortcut support. So this action that I used to open drafts, okay, I'm just going to hold up my iPhone on the other side of my screen. It's a little bit tricky because this cable's not very long. And what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to double back tap the iPhone, okay, and it switches to drafts, okay? That's what it does. And so that is a shortcut. And if we pop into settings, and then we scroll down into the accessibility section, in Touch at the bottom, there's an option for back tap. Okay. And you can see double back tap says new draft. And if we scroll down here, that means that you can run shortcuts. So that means that you could do something like open the camera, or you could add an errand to your task manager. You can also use actual accessibility features like turning on and off the torch, or the camera. Torch is flashlight, of course, for you Americans. There's also toggling rotation lock and screen lock and so on. But being able to run a shortcut is great. And if I go back here, then you can see my shortcut is new draft. But if I double back tap on that Apple logo, this isn't a new draft. This is not opening a new draft. And that's my fault. I actually created my shortcut wrong. So what we're going to do right here live on air is we're going to fix my shortcut, because I need to fix this. And then people can see how easy it is to fix a shortcut that you created incorrectly. Of course, I do need to be able to spell for this. So what I've done here, I'll just keep one there. There's a thing is I've got this new draft action, but I'm not opening that draft. And that right there is my problem. So what I need to do here is scroll down to drafts and open draft. That's all I need to do. And then I can just tap and hold here. And this is where running a beta operating system comes in problematic. Either way, I'll fix that in a couple of weeks, I guess, when Apple give me a new beta. But now when I run this shortcut, it will open a new draft and save it. And let's just take a look at the other drafts actions that are available. So for example, you can create a draft with dictation. If you're running iOS 14, then you'll probably realize that if you try and dictate text, it times out. Now, Apple are fixing this in iOS 15. If, like me, you're impatient and you don't want to wait, but unlike me, you're smart and you're not running a developer beta, which frequently has bugs and causes all sorts of problems for you, then you can do that in drafts. And it has unlimited dictation for you. You can also get drafts from a specific workspace, and a workspace is basically any drafts with a specific tag. You can use drafts markdown to HTML conversion, and you can run actions on drafts. And there are all sorts of actions inside of drafts and inside the action directory, where you can download those and install them. And so I find this to be incredibly useful. I actually have stuff run automatically a lot of the time, based on, I open this application, it creates a draft for me, and then it runs an action on it to make sure that everything's correctly formatted and it's pulled this information down. That makes my life much easier. So that's one of the reasons why I love drafts. I could do an entire episode on automating things with drafts, but that's not what we're here for, Micah. So I think we probably best be ready to move on to your pick, or one of your picks.
Yeah, so I just wanted to toss one in there. And so this pick is one we've talked a lot on the show in different episodes about Carrot Weather. And so if you are a regular Carrot Weather user and you really like Carrot Weather, then chances are you enjoy the way that Carrot Weather provides the forecast. You like the data that Carrot Weather provides, and you kind of count on that. So you can, of course, use the default weather app with iOS, and if you're using Siri, for example, to ask for the weather. But what if you wanted to use Carrot and its integrations in order to provide you with the weather? That has been set up in the Carrot Weather app through shortcuts. So here I have opened up a new shortcut and tapped on the apps section so that I can find one. And I scroll down until I find Carrot. And you can see there's one simple thing. It says get weather report. If I tap I, it will tell me get weather for a specified location. So I'll add that to this shortcut. And you have some choices here. Get current observations, get the hourly forecast, get the daily forecast, or ask each time. So I'm going to do daily forecast, and then you can choose the location. You can search for a location that's maybe not this one, or choose your current location and tap done. And then I'll hit play here, but really you would set this up where you could name it whatever you want, and then Carrot Weather could be activated through Siri. But I'll just tap the play button and it will do the searching to find my current location, and then it will provide the daily forecast. And sometimes this takes a second. This is a pro tip. It is almost always a better idea to type in an address when you're using shortcuts specifically, to type in an address rather than get the current location, because for some reason, get current location is a step that takes a bit more time. So if you're kind of in a hurry, a way to get around that is to just use, a standard location. So I could type in Petaluma, California, for example, but then boom, up pops. Not only does it give me the information, and it would over voice as well, but check this out. It's got a card from the Carrot Weather app itself here, giving me the current forecast. And since I'm looking at the screen, it also provides me information for the forecast for days to come. So pretty nifty that it's all right there in the Siri screen, that all of that is available to me. So yeah, if you would rather have Carrot give you your daily weather report, you should definitely check out that integration with shortcuts. All right, Rosemary, you should continue to wow us with far better or far more integrated, far more exciting integrations for shortcuts. What's next on your list?
Well, my next pick, I wouldn't say it's more exciting like Carrot. It's only got one shortcuts action, but that's because this app is designed to do one thing and one thing only. And this app has been my app cap before on iOS today, and that's HomeCam for HomeKit. So basically what this does is it just connects to the Home app and to HomeKit, and it just gets your cameras, and it gives you a feed of all of your cameras in one view. Okay. And so I could tap on one and then I can see, okay, yeah, parking camera. Okay. So my car is fine. There's no problems out there. I can close it. But sometimes, especially when I'm podcasting, I hear a noise and I just want to quickly see on one particular camera what's going on. And guess what? I can do that in shortcuts. So I'll just close out my new draft shortcut there and cancel my search. And now if I create a new shortcut inside of the app section, scroll down to HomeCam, and tap on that. And then you can see it's suggesting two cameras that I've recently viewed in the app, the parking camera and my 3D printer camera, which I've actually disconnected earlier today because I have a different setup for that now. But then there's this view camera action. And then here I can tap on this and I can select a specific camera. So say, for example, I wanted to view my front door camera. Or I could check my hallway entrance camera. So the front door is actually on the front door. The hallway entrance one is inside because when I got that, I didn't have a camera on my actual door. Or I can select the parking camera. And then when I run this, it just pops up and it gives me a quick live stream of exactly that camera. And that's all it's doing. And then if I tap on that, then it'll take me straight into the app so that then I can actually see everything else. Now, HomeCam does only work with HomeKit cameras, which is kind of a shame. I wish it had support for more things. But at the same time, the developers created lots of great apps for HomeKit on iOS and also on tvOS. This app is available on tvOS as well, which is great. I'm really pleased with it. But it works really well. Also, a little bonus tip: if you tap on the play, then it will auto cycle between everything. So you can select, say, for example, 3, and then just hit start, and it's kind of like a little security loop where it'll just show you one camera for, in my case, I've set it up to show me this camera for 10 seconds, and then I'll go to the next camera. And even here, I can just toggle down the volume so that there's no feedback. And voila, it's now showing me the view of my front door, and also, unfortunately, for my neighbor, her front door. I do wish I could see something other than her front door. I just want to know when people are coming to my front door, but unfortunately, doorbell cameras aren't that smart. So there we go. But yes, that's HomeCam for HomeKit, which is a great application.
It absolutely is.
Yeah, it's worth grabbing.
It makes up for the what is missing in the actual, what makes up for the actual home app itself. What you don't have there, HomeCam can take care of, and I adore that.
Yes, yeah, it's a $4.99 one-time purchase for the app, but it's great. I love it.
All right. So tell us what comes next on your list. Oh, I recognize this app.
I know. I know. This was one of your app caps. And then I mentioned it last week. So I just want to quickly mention it today. This is Signals for HomeKit. And I'm just going to pop up my iPhone there. And so this is my Get Up signal. And I mentioned this last week, but I'm actually just going to build a signal very quickly. And I'm going to call this apparently books. There we go. That's better. Bookcase test. And I'll just give it an icon. And now I'm going to create a signal and add an affected light. And if we look here, there's a light strip behind me. And there we go. I am actually going to pulse that, and I'm going to use a color, and I'm going to say blue. And I'm going to have that hold for 5 seconds. There we go. So now I have a new signal for HomeKit. Okay. And if I were to run this in the app, then you can see it's pulsing the lights on my bookcase behind me. This is one of the bonuses that you get for watching the video. And I haven't set a finish date, so it's just going to go back to whatever it was. Well, that's great. So now I've got another signal, but now I can tie this into automations. So last week, I told people, when I hit the snooze button on my alarm, which I've now, of course, lost, when any alarm is snoozed, run signal. Okay. So you can tie this into automations. So for example, you could have it do it at a specific time of day when wind down starts, things like that, and this is going to work, for example, whenever, this is best done, whenever something actually automated happens, because otherwise, your lights aren't going to do whatever they're supposed to do automatically. And I do love that one to get me out of bed in the morning. I'm pleased to report, Mike, I've not hit my snooze button once this week.
Nice. So it's working.
It's working. Okay. So now I've created an automation. I've just set it for whenever I open drafts. Now, this is not a particularly good automation for this app. And of course, that's made me think that. So I'm just going to search signals. There we go. So now I can say, so there's two actions for this. So you can either flash a light or you can run a signal. Now I prefer to run a signal because then I can create it and customize it. But here's my bookcase test. Okay. So now I'm going to go next, turn off Ask Before Running. So whenever I open drafts, okay, it's going to flash my bookcase lights. So now I double tap the Apple logo, it opens drafts, and it should, there we go, flash my lights for me. Voila.
Nice.
And okay, opening an app is not a great idea. And for flashing your lights, maybe, unless it's like, hey, you need that app, but you shouldn't be opening that app after 5 p.m. In which case it could do a time check and say, hey, it's 5 p.m. I'm going to flash your lights at you or something like that. But this, Signals for HomeKit has got a lot of applications. For example, I've got a sensor on my front door. So whenever letters go through it, I get a notification that says you've got mail. Well, I could add a signal to that to flash lights in particular rooms so that I know I've got mail, and so on and so forth. So, think about things where you already have other automations built into it for Signals for HomeKit, and then you can apply a shortcut to do that as well.
I love Signals. It's as I mentioned before, it is the app that it's something that I've always wanted with my smart home devices that worked on a local level as opposed to requiring a server connection, because people will go, well, IFTTT can do that. And some other web services can do that. But this is what happens via HomeKit. And so through that, it's far better at doing what I want it to do because it's more likely to actually work and happen, which is the most important thing when it comes to these kinds of automations. Up next is an app for, is it a timing app? Is it
it's a time tracking application?
That's what I was thinking. Tell us about this one.
So for people who don't know Toggl is a web service which lets you track your time. And this is especially useful for people who are supposed to budget a specific number of hours to different projects, people who are freelancers, or sometimes just people like me who are there going, wait, I have 24 hours in a day and it feels like I have 3. Where is my time going? I blink and it's already 6 p.m. What happened there? And one of the things I realized is, a lot of the time my time disappears when I'm on iOS and I'm doing things. So I created some automations to help me track my time automatically. And I'm using an application for this called Timery for Toggl. Now, Timery for Toggl is free, but if you want to get the full benefit of it, then it is $9.99 a year. And some of you might be wondering, why isn't she using the Toggl application for this? I've heard, the Toggl application exists for iOS. That's true. It even has shortcut support. But the shortcut support in Toggl, I have found to be somewhat lacking. It doesn't support things like creating projects, which means that you can't integrate it into other things. So I have a project setup shortcut, which actually creates a project in OmniFocus, my task manager. It creates a draft in Drafts, and it also creates a project in Timery, or using Timery in Toggl, so that I can track my time spent on that project. And then I can also, as part of my review, check my project time tracked at the end of it all. So what I've got here is I'm reusing my automation from just now, which is whenever I open drafts. And you can see here, there's a lot of different Timery actions. So you can, for example, get clients, you can get projects, you can get tags, you can even get tasks. So if you've got tasks that have been created in the Toggl system, you can use that there. But the action I'm going to use here is the start timer action. And here you can see I can select all sorts of things. So I'm going to select automation creation. And I'm just going to type in drafts, and now I can select a tag. And so I am going to put this in as a video. And you can see there's some other options here. You can even select a workspace, start time. So say, for example, you frequently forget to start timers, you could modify that. I'm doing this as soon as I open the app. So I don't need to worry about that. Okay, so now I can go back and I can finish editing this automation. So it says when drafts is open, start a time entry. And so I'm going to double tap this, and voila, that's using my shortcut to open drafts. And my time entry has automatically been started for me. That's it. That's all I needed to do. And of course, you can create a reverse one when you close an application, then stop tracking your time. And this works. It's great. I don't even need to see a notification. It has just done the magic in the background. Now, I did sign into a temporary Toggl account for this. So let's have a look. And voila, automation creation was started and it's been running for 30 seconds now, Micah. I'm going to stop that and delete it. I've actually got another timer running on my actual Toggl account for this. But there we go. That's a story for another time, perhaps.
Yes. So I think that folks will be particularly impressed by shortcuts that let you kind of kick things off just whenever you open an app or you go to do a thing. That sort of awareness that's there. And we know that in iOS 15, it gets even more aware, where it can see what's on the screen and use that as part of the input for whatever shortcut happens next. So I think things are going to get even more powerful after that, for sure. All righty, we're going to take a quick break before we come back with more ways to automate your apps. This episode of iOS Today is brought to you. I'm really excited by a new sponsor for the show. It's Sennheiser. Yes, that's right, Sennheiser. When it comes to earbuds, honestly, it's all about sound quality. You are listening. You want to have the best sound quality. That's why you've got to check out Sennheiser. They make the best earbuds money can buy. For the past 75 years, while other companies focused on phones or tablets, it's Sennheiser that's put sound first. This is what they do. This is their bread and butter. Their new Momentum True Wireless 2s deliver the best listening experience and have been finely crafted for even the most discerning listener. With their free Smart Control app, you can adjust the sound to your personal preference with the built-in equalizer. And let me tell you, the app, whenever they say adjust it to exactly how you want it, that's what they mean. You can go in and make adjustments to the highs, mids, and lows all on your own, just how you want it. And there's an option for the wave, and there's an option for just sliders to bring it up and down. You can switch off your surroundings and dive into that song or episode of the podcast that you're listening to with the new active noise cancellation feature. And with these, you get up to, this is wild, 28 hours of battery life. These earbuds can last you all day and then some. You can feel the quality of Sennheiser's earbuds the second you put them on. And they've also got over-ear headphones and soundbars for all your audio needs, which is why it's no wonder that CNET called the Momentum True Wireless 2s clearly superior, and get this, clearly superior sound quality to the AirPods Pro, and the earbuds to get if you value sound quality over everything else. I have a pair of these Sennheiser True Wireless 2s here. And so you can see the little case. Inside, you get two buds, and check that out. No stem on these bad boys. They are in their charging case right now. You take one out, and Sennheiser says you stick it in your ear and then kind of rotate forward. And that's perfect because the way that these are shaped, it follows the natural sort of the way that your ear tube works, the way that that space works, that cavity works. And so they slide right in, and these things fit very well. They're very light. So moving about, I feel like I could move about very easily without having to worry about it. And you pop these in and you immediately know what they're talking about whenever they say superior sound quality. It's kind of wild how well these sound. Just because I had been using AirPods Pro for so long, and other wireless headphones did not match. When Sennheiser says, "Hey, look, we're focused on sound quality," they mean it. I also just like the fact that there are several different options for ear tips in the case so that you can find the right tip that works for you. And then the other thing that I really like is the front of it is a touch sensitive surface, so you can do gestures for playing and pausing and moving forward or backward. And instead of it being kind of accelerometer based, meaning that it needs to feel the vibration of the movement that you're doing, it's touch based, so you can very lightly just tap on it and do the thing that you want to do, which means for anybody who's used those that are accelerometer based, when you go to tap and make that vibration, you hear that in your eardrum, and it's very unpleasant. So with these, you don't have that. I kind of rest my fingers on the side of my face, and then I just lightly tap the Sennheiser bud, and then it does the thing that I needed to do. Very cool and very good sound because of that. So why settle for anything less than great sound? You don't have to. Come hear the difference with Sennheiser right now. For the first 100 listeners, yes, that's right, It's the first 100. So if you're listening to this, go there now. You have to go to Sennheiser.com/podcast and use promo code iOS. You're going to receive 15% off the Momentum True Wireless 2 earbuds or any of their amazing headphones. That's 15% off when you go to Sennheiser.com/podcast and use our promo code iOS. Thanks so much to Sennheiser for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. We appreciate you, and we appreciate that good sound that we get. Also forgot to mention USB-C charging in the back. Very nice. And this really nice fabric case that it comes in too. So yeah, you'll be able to plug in and charge whenever you're ready. And unlike others, there's actually a USB-C cable in the box. So you can make sure to get charging right away. All right, back to the show. Rosemary Orchard, tell us about Cardhop.
Okay, so Cardhop is from the makers of Fantastical. So that's FlexiBits. And so for people who don't know either FlexiBits or Fantastical, it is a great, so Cardhop is a great alternative contacts application. It just integrates with the contacts on your iPhone. So it's not storing stuff on their servers or anything. And it adds this whole extra layer of other stuff on top so that you can store things in your contacts, like more information, and have easy one-tap options to do things like WhatsApp a person, and so on. And if you've already got Fantastical and you were paying for the premium, then you get Cardhop for free with it, which is great. But one of the reasons why I love Cardhop, at least in today's episode, is because you can do shortcuts with it. Of course you can. And so there's all sorts of options here. So you can add information to a contact. You can copy a link to a current contact. So for example, if you know that you need to call this person on Friday at 2 p.m., then you can copy a link to that contact. And then save that in your calendar event for Friday at 2 p.m. And then voila, when you open the calendar event, then there's a link right there to go to the contact so that you can see all the information and go, yeah, I'm going to call them on their office number or their iPhone or whatever it is. You can also use type to Cardhop from Shortcuts, which means that it just jumps you straight into this. So these are all fake contacts here, by the way, just in case anyone's worried about my privacy. Then you can just go straight ahead. And so I could type Micah, and look, it's coming up with you, Micah Sargent. And I can create a second Micah. So I can create a Micah 2. Okay. And it's giving me an option here.
Oh, no.
And so I'm going to type hello@micah.com because that's clearly your email address. It's not. And look, it's suggesting that I add that as the home number. And then if I add a phone number, look, it's adding that straight into the mobile section and things like that. So you can just type and just dump all that straight in. And I've just opened that straight from there.
That.
Now, why this shortcut might be useful is if you are, for example, as things are opening back up, if you're going to an event, say a conference or something where you're going to be getting a lot of information about people, then you might want to use that. Now, they also have a business card scanning feature. That's not available through Shortcuts. But one of the other things I love is this little show upcoming birthdays, where if you run this, it can show you the upcoming birthdays and it will just pop me straight through. And look, I can see apparently one of my friends is 2 years old. That's definitely wrong. But look, my grandmother's birthday is in August and she's going to be 92. So I love the fact that you can just jump to lots of different things here. And you can do stuff with these actions as well. It's even got some favorite actions. So you can see doctors is down here. That's because I had to phone them a couple of times this week. I had to make an appointment and I had to make a follow-up appointment to go in person next week. And so it's suggesting that as a way to get in touch with them, because every time I try and call them, I need to double check to make sure what their opening hours are right now, because they change every single day. And so I always open it in Cardhop and go to their website and then go back and call them when I'm done, because the phone number, of course, is not listed on the website. Why would it be listed? But anyway, this makes it much easier. You can show your favorites, you can show recent contacts, you can show all of your contacts, you can create it from input. So you can provide input right here. So say, for example, you're scanning something from somewhere or, a QR code or something, then you can scan a QR code and then input that detail into this action right here. So there's a lot you can do with this. And I'm very pleased that Cardhop, along with Fantastical, which didn't make the cut today, not for any particular reason other than they already have one great app and I didn't want to give them too much screen time. It's a great way of manipulating your contacts through shortcuts. And of course, the native contacts integration is about to get better, but you can just layer Cardhop right over the top and add even more details like extra photos, relationships, all sorts of things.
Very nice. We love Cardhop and the Fantastical, or I should say the Flexibits team. They make some great stuff. Now, what if I wanted to quickly make adjustments to my photos and sort of go past what iOS offers by default when it comes to photo editing and photo management?
Yes. Well, this is one I've not had a huge amount of chance to play with right now because they only released this 4 days ago. And so for most of this, we're going to have to refer to the news article because I've done some playing, but I've not managed to play a huge amount yet because I've been busy this week. And that is with a great app called Darkroom. Now, Micah, you alluded to the fact, Shortcuts has photos integration to do things like, a little bit of resizing and stuff like that. But Darkroom, not Lightroom, Darkroom is a great application which lets you do even more stuff. So you can set aspect ratios and, filter intensities, add watermarks, adding a watermark inside of Shortcuts without doing things like converting to PNGs, overlaying images and stuff like that. Oh God, it's a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. So I'm really glad that Darkroom offers this. And Darkroom is actually free to download and use for a week as a trial. So there's 5 actions that are really the key ones that have been added this week, which is rejecting photos and flagging photos, adding photos to your favorites, and then editing and importing as well. And this really allows you to do much heavier photo editing on your iPhone or your iPad. Now, I personally think iPad is more likely if you've got a good DSLR, you're taking great photos. You're going to want to see those on a nice big screen, and something like an iPhone, even a Max, it's not that big. So, you're not going to be able to see your photos in their full glory. But if you are, getting into editing photos and you've got a lot that you need to get through, then I think you should give Darkroom a shot because it's free. But you can then, do all sorts of things. And then if you want to post them to Instagram, you can use Shortcuts integration to post them to Instagram. If you want to share them on Twitter, you can do that as well. There's all sorts of things, once you've done that. And Darkroom also is one of the many developers who said when Monterey launches, Shortcuts actions are going to be in the Mac app version of Darkroom as well, which I'm really pleased about. Darkroom supports editing photos and videos, actually, which is great. I'm really excited by that.
I think that any of the integrations that kind of, again, take what you have and really expand on what iOS is able to do on its own, that sort of give you more power. Those are going to be things that draw people in. And so this is definitely one of those that I think deserved a mention. Our next little list of things, we're just giving a quick little shout out to these different apps, as these are apps that are they're going to be for, in most cases, power user. But if you're like me, in listening to this episode and seeing some of these integrations, you might get inspired, hop into the Shortcuts app and start playing around and realize that there are a few things that you want to do that maybe you can't do just within the app itself, just within Shortcuts or just with those other apps. And so I had found that there are a few shortcuts that I set up that required a little bit extra. And so some of these tools will help you take that to the next level. We're going to cover these in depth in a future episode after folks have had a chance to kind of get used to Shortcuts after this episode. But we just want to briefly mention them. And so the one I will mention first is Toolbox Pro. Toolbox Pro is an app that lets you, again, do more than just Shortcuts can do on its own. So I will give the example that I used, and that can kind of be the quick one. But I mean, as you scroll through here, you can see so many different options that take things to the next level. The one that I needed to do was it was with the VPN. So by default, iOS's Shortcuts app did not give me a way to check if a VPN was enabled, and I wanted to be able to check if the VPN was enabled, and so I set up a shortcut that would, before I would do a search with Google or whatever web service, I would essentially tap this icon and it would start by checking if the VPN was enabled. If it was, then it would go and open Safari and I could do the thing that I wanted to do. If it was not, then it would pop open the ExpressVPN app and let me then turn on ExpressVPN before I then went to Safari. And I should mention that ExpressVPN has been a sponsor before, although even if they weren't, I would be using ExpressVPN as my VPN because it's fantastic. That's an aside though. So this app helped me kind of take things to the next level. And I imagine you probably use Toolbox Pro as well, Rosemary, right?
I really do. I use it for all sorts of things, such as so I have a couple of shortcuts that are for budgeting and things like that, but I don't, if somebody else were to use my phone while it's unlocked, I don't necessarily want them to be monkeying around with my budgeting information. So there's an authenticate option inside of Toolbox Pro. And this is an action. Now, of course, it's very easy to remove this action and then run the shortcut again. But I'm hoping that by that time, I'd have my phone back. So that wouldn't be a problem. So these things aren't, foolproof for stuff like that. But there's other options like getting the details of TV shows, finding movies. There's even, finding emoji and getting colors as a hex and all sorts of information. So it's one of those things where if you're thinking, I would love to know if audio is playing. That is an action right here. Or I would like to scan a QR code in an image. So I've got an image saved on my iPhone, but I want to scan a QR code in it. How can I do that? Well, with Toolbox Pro, you can do that. You can also do things like reverse the order of a list, trim text. So if you've got spaces at the beginning and end of text, that can sometimes mess things up, but you could trim the text and get rid of those spaces. And so then you've just got the text, or you can trim the text and just say, get rid of the last 3 characters or 3 letters or whatever it is you need. There's also options to do things like create icons. And if you're one of those people who's like, actually, I kind of feel like I would like to customize my home screen. I want widgets and then I want a couple of apps, but I want them all to have a very uniform design. Then there's a great action, and I'll just pop up my iPhone right here, called create icon. And then you can create basic or advanced or emoji icons. And if I were to create an emoji icon, then I can do an emoji icon with this lovely little heart. And this, of course, is now stuck. Wonderful. I will just tap into here and emoji icon and done. There we go. And now I can run it and it will create an emoji icon for me. And voila, I can now put that on my home screen. So I know when I'm talking to my podcast buddies, how wonderful they are. For example, so there's lots that you can do with Toolbox Pro. We don't have time to dive into all of that today, but if you're looking for an action that tells you, for example, is the sun up or down? Or is audio playing? Things like that. Is dark mode enabled? You can find that sort of thing in Toolbox Pro. It's basically filling the gap from where iOS native shortcuts actions don't quite, manage to do it. So I'm really glad that this app exists.
Yes, it's very powerful. That's all there is to it. It's very powerful. Oh, I see. I'm still on that screen. Any other special mentions you want to give?
Yes. So one of them that I'm going to talk about is Data Jar. And Data Jar is basically a way to store data so that you can share it between shortcuts. So I have driving destinations. I'm not going to dive into these because they are, obviously addresses and so on for people. But that allows me to build my own sat-nav, which next week I will be hopefully upgrading to CarPlay. I also have Wi-Fi addresses, which translates addresses into, physical locations. I have washing machine. Now, this sounds crazy. This is tracking the energy use from my washing machine at specific points. So you can see, last year on the 7th of December, at 12:22 and 20 seconds, it was using 1,856 something. I'm not quite sure exactly what that value is, but basically it's allowing me to track things, and then I can reuse that between shortcuts. I'm even building a custom shopping parser, which will take information and then convert it into an OmniFocus task with like all of the tags and everything that I might need, which is pretty fun. So I love that. Data jar is a great way of just storing data so that you can use it next time you run a shortcut or in a different shortcut or just when you need to look at it, for example. There's another one by the same developer called Jayson, Jayson. And if you're messing around with APIs, then you're probably going to be getting back JSON data. That's JSON. That's JavaScript Object Notation. And people, don't turn your brain off there. Like, if you want to talk to Airtable through shortcuts, you can do that. But when you get the data back, it's a dictionary and shortcuts, but sometimes you want to just like go through. So this is some D&D stuff. For example, if I wanted to know how to get this, then I can actually do this, and then I can show everything here. And oops, that's the wrong thing. But I can now say, okay, I want to copy the key to this. And then I can use that back in my shortcut. So that I think we might need a little bit more time for at some point. But there's one more app that I want to talk about briefly, and that is Shortcutify. Now, Shortcutify allows you to do things like integrate with Google Drive, Coinbase, LiftX. It's also got some macOS options, Todoist for some alternative Todoist actions. But one of the things it does do, if you set it up correctly, then it also integrates with Spotify. Now, Spotify doesn't have shortcuts integrations, but Shortcutify does. And so you can then automate Spotify through shortcuts, which means if you want to be able to do things like automatically play some music when you open your running application, you can do that with Spotify as well as Apple Music.
We love it. All right, folks, that covers the first segment of the show. These are some of the ways that you can automate the apps that you have and start to experiment with shortcuts on iOS. Of course, thank you to Rosemary for covering quite a few different ways to integrate. And as we both promised, we will do an episode in the future that's a little bit more in-depth about the tools that help you take shortcuts to the next level. But we wanted to give people a kind of kickoff here. And hopefully this will also lead to people asking even more questions as you start to play around with the apps that you have and realize that there's already a section within shortcuts that you can go to and say, oh, this works with the app. How does this work with the app? How does this? And that's kind of how I got started. And it just keeps going from there. We've got news for you. And the first bit of news is something that's just kind of one of those, you think that you're going through this alone, and then you hear that you're not going through this alone, and it makes you feel a little better, even if there isn't quite a fix for it. And that is iCloud calendar spam, which keeps happening, even though Apple has worked on fixes. So if you have ever gotten a notification inviting you to an event that you have no idea what it is or why it's there or who's sending it, you're not alone. I've experienced that before. I don't know if Rosemary, if you have, but a lot of people have that happen, and it's tough to fix because you kind of have to deal with it on a case-by-case basis. And Apple has struggled to completely get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is so frustrating. You see this weird thing in your calendar app, and it's like, I don't know, like sale on sunglasses or something like that. And you're like, there's no sale on Ray-Ban sunglasses. This is clearly spam. How did this get here? And the answer is somebody is just spamming a whole bunch of email addresses. And it managed to slip through the filters that Apple have set up to try and get rid of these spam options. So there are some options. Apple's actually published a video, which we can put a link to in the show notes, so that people can find out how to unsubscribe from calendar spam. And I was going to paste that link into the chat room, but it is a humongous link that needs resolving first. So I will do that later. But yeah, it's very frustrating. You don't need to worry. It's not like your email account or your iCloud account has been compromised if this happens. It's just annoying to deal with. It's one of those things. It's like, a bird poo on your windscreen. You just need to use washer fluid and wipers and it'll go away. But Apple's working on building that big glass dome above us so that we don't have to deal with this ourselves, hopefully.
Fingers crossed that it continues to improve upon this so that we don't have to keep dealing with it. Up next, there was an interview with Patreon about the App Store in general and about kind of what they do in terms of the built-in app purchases that you can make for different Patreon accounts. And there had been some speculation that Patreon had a special deal like some other companies seem to, where they don't have to pay the 30% to Apple for those in-app purchases. But Patreon says, no, that's not something that we have.
Yeah. So this is one of those things, you hear about Apple offering deals to specific people. We know that Zoom, for example, has had access to special APIs to allow their video to work in split screen and things like that, all of which hopefully is rolling out for others as well. But, it's one of those things where rumors constantly go around and sometimes they have a grain of truth and sometimes they don't. I'm sure Apple has got special deals with some people, but they're not publicly talking about it. So we have to assume that it's not a big deal. Maybe it is, but hopefully it doesn't.
All right. And then for folks who've purchased AirTags, you may be interested to know that Apple is rolling out a firmware update for AirTags. I think this is the second update, the second firmware update. So AirTags came out, then they did a firmware update, and this seems to be another one on top of that. And last I checked, it's unclear what the firmware update does. Is that still the case?
Yeah, so I believe it's been confirmed now that this is part of the anti-stalking measures, which Apple included and then were criticized for including, even though all other Bluetooth tracking devices do exactly the same thing. Yes, Apple apparently has adjusted the period of time it takes for AirTags to play a sound alert after being separated from their owner. And it's when it launched, it was after it had been separated from its owner for 3 days. Now it is randomly within an interval between 8 and 24 hours. Unfortunately, there's no way to confirm what version of your AirTag. There is a way to confirm what version of firmware your AirTag is running. And that's the wrong iPhone. I'll just pick up the right iPhone here and check that I can show people. So in the slowest spotlight window ever, I will just pop down to this and double check. Sorry. Okay, so there we go. So now if you tap on the, if you're looking at one of your AirTags here, so you can see, notifications when it's left behind, except at one location. So that could be your home, for example, or work. But if you tap on the name up here, now this is not a button, so it doesn't look obvious. But if you tap on where it says, in my case, Apple TV remote, then it'll change the now 100% battery to serial number, blah, 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 firmware version. And if it's running 1.0.276, then that is the newer version of the firmware. I really hope that the family sharing is coming to this, because it would be great to be able to family share some of the some AirTags with my parents. For example, I'm going to be giving them a spare car key to my car in a couple of weeks. And it would be great for it to be my AirTag, but shared with them so that they don't get random notifications that they're being stalked by an AirTag. Because, they're not. I can stalk them anyway. We use Find My in my family to share our locations. So, it's not actually a problem. And just to be clear, that the separation now is sometime between 8 and 24 hours. I'm pretty certain that Apple are going to be using some machine learning from Siri on this. So, for example, if you and your partner share car keys, and every so often your partner takes your car to work rather than their car, because you need to swap cars for the day, and then they go home at the end of it, if that's less than 8 hours, they're definitely not going to get a notification. They work for 8 hours and they've got a commute, then that's going to be over that minimum 8 hour, but it's not going to be 8 hours on the dot. Ding, 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 ding. You're being stalked by an AirTag. It's going to be sometime between 8 and 24 hours. Okay. So if you average that out, it's going to be around about 16 hours. But it might not be. It could be 8 hours and 1 minute, or it could be 23 hours, 59 minutes. But I'm pretty certain that they're going to learn, and hopefully we'll get family sharing on AirTag soon. If only so that, I can share an AirTag with somebody and then it won't tell them that they're being stalked by it, because they can also track it and they know that they've been given it.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's take a quick break before we come back with some more news. This podcast is supported by AT&T Active Armor. We rely so much on our phones these days and are always on them, whether it's live streaming content, catching up with family on those weekly video calls, or watching your favorite podcasts like you might be doing now. Honestly, in any case, there's no room for fraud calls. It is so annoying whenever you're just trying to, play a game or watch a show, and then up pops this call, and then you don't recognize the name, and then it gets in the way, and it's all just so frustrating. We need to get rid of them. How? Well, thankfully, AT&T makes customer security a priority, helping block those pesky calls. It's not complicated. AT&T Active Armor. It's 24/7 proactive network security and fraud call blocking to help stop threats at no extra charge. Compatible device and service required. Visit att.com/Active Armor for details. Thank you, AT&T Active Armor. We appreciate it. All right. In the wake of the antitrust concerns that Apple has faced in many a country at this point, Apple has published a report detailing its trusted ecosystem of apps. It's a PDF, and it's full of data about the state of the App Store and what happens when there isn't a trusted ecosystem of apps. I had the pleasure of talking to Renee Ritchie yesterday on Tech News Weekly about this report, and kind of asked him, what does this actually do in the midst of things? How does a PDF that's available to the public help? And what he pointed out was, them sharing it with the public is kind of an aside to the real part, which is that they've funded research and they've looked into things to try and figure out what's going on, and use that to help in any argument that they have to make. So you got to do the research in order to prove things past anecdote and have that data there. And so this is about having that data and showing how an app store that is the way that Apple has it, without sideloading, is a good bet for people's privacy and security.
Yes. And I think, it's one of these things where people say, oh, yeah, but you can sideload apps on this, or you can do whatever you like on the Mac, and so on and so forth. But all of these come with trade-offs. And that's not to say that, people shouldn't have the option to expose themselves to security problems and so on. But as somebody who spent a chunk of last weekend dealing with her grandmother's email account username and password being breached, and it turned out that she had not followed my very explicit instructions to not reuse her password across things. I'm also quite glad that users don't get that choice in many cases, because I mean, you can still jailbreak your devices if you really want to, at least in many cases. It's one of those things where it's all swings and roundabouts. But I'm generally in favor of not being able to do things like that.
I am right there with you. I would prefer that folks don't, that by default, folks don't have access to this. And if they want to go that risky route and learn how to do that, they can, but that it is not something, because it's just so easy. An interstitial pops up on a website that says, you've got viruses and it's going to steal everything from you. Tap to download this app that'll help you. And then you tap to download that app, and it's a sideloaded app, so it hasn't passed any sort of inspection. And then suddenly it's, stealing something from you. Scares me. I am pumped about this next bit of news because MJ Rodriguez has joined the folks who will be providing time to walk stories for the Apple Watch. If you haven't heard of the time to walk stories, it is an Apple Watch. It is part of Apple Watch and Apple's Fitness Plus program, where you can walk along with a celebrity of some sort or a notable person. The first example of this was Dolly Parton. So you would have your headphones in and Dolly would be talking while the both of you were walking. And they've added more people over time, and they just announced the next slew of guests starting June 28th. And one of those is MJ Rodriguez, host of one of the stars of Pose. And I just love her. She's fantastic. So I'm really pumped for that one. I'm curious, have you done any of these time to walk exercises?
I haven't done it yet. But there's one person in this lineup that's going to make me get walking from Monday, and that's Stephen Fry. For people who don't know him, he did the audio reads of the British releases of the Harry Potter books. He also did Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and a whole bunch of other stuff. So he's been in lots of things. He was in V for Vendetta for one. So he's a personality who's done many things, and I'm very excited to hear what's going to happen there. So I think that's going to get me walking. Like, I really need to walk more. But
Me too.
I'll do it.
Me too. All right. Then this is good. Apple TV Plus is reminding everybody, hey, your free trials are coming to an end. So if you want to keep using the service, you're going to need to start paying for it. I think that Apple, once they finally got that hit with Ted Lasso, they were like, oh, we can actually start charging for this now instead of continuing to give people free trials that keep extending. That's just my thought from the outside looking in. But I think they were. I mean,
that's my thought as well. Like my trial expires on July 2nd. And the first new episode of Ted Lasso is July 23rd. So it's like, at the most, I'm going to have like 2.5 weeks without an Apple TV Plus subscription. Let's be honest. And I might want to binge rewatch Ted Lasso series 1 before I start season 2. Okay, I'm going to do it. So I'm just going to keep it. It's fine. But it really is great. I also enjoyed the morning show. And I need to watch some more of the things on there. But I found it to be, for me, it's going to be half the price of Netflix. Okay, it doesn't have all the content available on Netflix. But Ted Lasso is just such a big hit that I think, even if people only sign up for a month, they're going to see a whole bunch of people sign up for a month when the final episode of Ted Lasso releases and just binge them all. I've also heard great things about Mythic Quest from several people now. So I'm going to have to start watching that soon.
Yeah, I go back and forth with that show. I do think I like it. For the most part, it's not one that I sort of, rush to as quickly as I possibly can. But it's one that I'll definitely watch. I'll kind of go and check out whenever I'm like, oh yeah, there's a new episode out. It's funny. But it's at times a little bit, it's a little bit on the nose with jokes and things. So
it's on the verge of being a great show.
Yes, there you go. Yeah. It is on the verge of being a great show. It's like, if you just did a couple little things differently. I think maybe it's that there's so many character actors in it, and people, or I should say, actors who are being character actors in the show. It doesn't feel quite real because there aren't enough more normal people or more believable people. But regardless of that, I think that it's kind of a junk show. I'll watch it and laugh and enjoy it. It's just not one that, sticks with you like Ted Lasso for me. And there's my review. We should talk now about a new feature that was announced at WWDC for iOS, iPadOS, etc., called SharePlay, which is essentially an extension to FaceTime that lets you share share experiencing content with other people. So you can share screen, you can share a show where you watch the show together, music, listen to music together, scribble on a whiteboard together, all that kind of stuff. SharePlay was not available in the first beta of iOS 15. It is now available in the second beta. And so you will be able to SharePlay. And then, of course, developers who are adding SharePlay functionality to their apps will be able to integrate with SharePlay via TestFlight, which for folks who don't know is the beta, the app for running betas on your iOS devices.
Yeah.
Have you tried SharePlay at all?
I've not, just because I've not had a time to do it with somebody who's in the right time zone. I've had plenty of times available to do it when, for example, you were asleep. And I didn't really want to try waking up at 3:00 in the morning to say, hey, can we try SharePlay together? Because that seemed kind of rude. But I'll get a chance to try it with somebody at some point, I'm sure. But I'm excited by this. I think it's going to be better once more people are on the public beta. Just because, it's good that we've now had a second beta. I'm looking forward to giving this a proper go.
Me too. We'll have to work out a time to definitely do that because I want to see how well it works. Maybe we can even demo it in a future episode. We'll figure that out.
Definitely.
It sounds complicated, but maybe we can do it. And then as of the new beta, or as of iOS 15, apps will be able, so this is kind of a complicated one. It's important to understand that right now, apps can only use so much RAM just for the sake of performance on these different devices. But there are some apps that have that could take more advantage of RAM. And of course, we have devices like the new iPad Pro that have more RAM available. And so when developers are creating their app, they can enable a thing called an entitlement. And that's not important. Essentially, think of it like a setting that says, hey, I want to use more RAM and I have a good reason for it to go past what the system would normally allow. So I think this will be great for games and other high performance tasks on the on your apps.
Yeah. So things like Pixelmator, Darkroom, things like that, they're going to be the ones who are going to be asking to go past those RAM limits. And I'm excited to see what they can do with this. My iPad Pro has got 16 gigabytes of RAM, Micah. Let's see what everything can do with that.
Amen to that. I'm looking forward to having some apps take advantage of that and see what happens. And then last but not least, oh, no, those are the two ones. So that means it's time to move on to, what's that sound? It's Shortcuts Corner. This is the part of the show where people send in their requests to Rosemary Orchard for help with shortcuts. So I imagine we'll be getting lots of Shortcuts Corner requests after this episode. But leading up to this, we do have some. So the first one comes from Chris. Chris writes in, this request is for Rosemary, but give Micah credit for saying something that made me think it's a possible request. Oh, thank you, Chris, for the credit there. I'm hoping you can figure out a shortcut or automation for this problem. All of the apps I use to AirPlay video to my Apple TV behave properly by allowing my phone to go dark but continue AirPlay. My Dish Anywhere app used to, but it was redesigned, and ever since this new app, AirPlay Dish needs to have my phone running. When the phone goes to auto lock, the Dish video on the Apple TV goes away. I currently have no auto lock timer set on my phone and remember to turn it off each time I use Dish to AirPlay. Can you set up a way to have auto lock disabled when I use the Dish app to AirPlay and then reactivate auto lock when the app is closed? When I watch the app only on the phone or iPad, it works and my device plays through auto lock timers. Hopeful. Thank you. Chris in Boise. All right. This one sounds complicated.
It is, but you solved it, Micah. You know how to do this. That's the brilliant thing. You actually have done this before because you do this before the show every single week where you turn off auto lock in the settings before you start the show. And the way you do that is not 100% automated. Now, I'm
Right.
sorry, there is no 100% way to automate this. And I'm just typing in the rest of the URL because watching me type is not super fun for people. And I needed to capitalize that. So there we go. So I'm just going to tap done, and I am going to show Chris how he can do this. So Chris, the trick is you're going to need to create an automation, and it's going to be an app automation. I'm reusing the one from earlier in the show. So change the app to the Dish app. Okay, that's what you're going to need to do. And you're going to want to say when it's opened or when it's closed. Okay, that's very important. You want this to trigger whenever it opens and closes. Okay, and then you want to open this URL. Okay, and this is the display auto lock URL. Okay, and when I run this, it should pop open the settings, and it's there's a bug, but that's my fault because I'm running a beta operating system. But basically, what this will do is this will go to the display section of settings, and then it goes to the auto lock section of that. And then what you can do is you can just turn off auto lock, and then you can turn off auto lock when you open it. And then when you close the app, it's going to run this again and take you to the settings again. And then you can turn it back off. And that should, fingers crossed, fix your problem for you. So that will just take you to exactly the right place whenever you need to do it.
Nice. There you go. That's it can be done.
It can indeed.
The next one comes from, I'm going to go with Mika Zeb, who writes in, we have a smart plug set to turn on a hot water circulator. We want it to turn off automatically 10 minutes after it is turned on. I kludged together a delay and automation in the Home app that runs a shortcut that waits on a recurring loop, but it breaks above a certain number of cycles or wait times. Is there a better way? A little more background on the water circulator. We have a time of day automation set up, so at 7 a.m. it turns on for 10 minutes. The issue was how to make it turn off after 10 minutes when it was manually started with a scene we set up so that we could use it at other times of day. Siri could activate it with voice commands. Because so yes, the problem here is when you need to do it more than once, it can kind of result in an issue. Any thoughts on this one, Rosemary?
I solved it. I spent so much today testing it out. So there's a couple of different ways you could do this. If you want to get into things like Homebridge and setting up something on a Synology or a Raspberry Pi, then you could create timers with dummy switches and things like that. But that's not the solution I want to send you home with. I want to send you home with a native solution. I'm pleased to report I can do that. So if an automation turns a scene on, as you've already said, Mika Zeb, it can turn it automatically off after 10 minutes. But if you just turn something on, then it can't. So there's a bit of a trick here. Okay, I'm in my Home app, and I am going to use the plus to create a scene. Okay, I'm not mad. I'm doing exactly what I need to do. So I'm going to call this, I'm just going to call it test. And I'm going to use on, okay? And then I'm going to add an accessory. I'm going to add the air freshener in my bedroom, and I'm going to set it to on, okay? That's all my scene is, okay? Just turning on, in this case, it'll be your water circulator, okay? And then I do that. Okay, so now I just pop into the bedroom, and I find my air freshener and go down here, and I add an automation. Okay, and when an accessory is controlled, I choose my bedroom air freshener, and I say when it's turned on. And now I need to find my scene. Now I've got a whole bunch of scenes here, so you're going to have to give me a second to scroll through. There it is, test on. Okay. And now I can say turn off. Okay. So when in this case, it's my air freshener. When my air freshener turns on, it turns on my scene. But then after 10 minutes, it turns my scene off. Okay. And my scene is just, in my case, my air freshener. But in your case, it's going to be your water circulator. And then it'll just turn it off. Okay. And this is how you can do it in the Shortcuts app. Now, I was chatting a little bit with Mika Zeb in the chat room, and he sent over a screenshot of what he had with a loop inside of Shortcuts, and it was waiting for 20 seconds, waiting for 10 seconds, and so on. And that is one way to do it. But as he's found out, this is kind of kludgy, and it doesn't always work. It kind of crashes at some point, which is a real shame. And unfortunately, Shortcuts can't just wait for a while. But if you create a scene with whatever it is on, so in this case, water circulator on, and then whenever your water circulator turns on, turn on that scene, then you can use this turn off after option, and you've got options going from 1 to 5 minutes in 1 minute increments, then every 5 minutes all the way up to I believe it's an hour, and then 2 hours, 3 hours, and 4 hours, and those are your options. And here, there's the one that we were asked for, 10 minutes, and that's all you do. And then it's done. And then whenever you turn that item on, it turns your scene on, and then after 10 minutes, your scene turns off. So hopefully that will do the trick for you.
Once again, Rosemary comes through. And we love it. Thank you.
Yeah, it took me a little bit of working yesterday evening to get that sorted. So I'm really glad that I had a chance to play beforehand, because I knew there was a way to do it with scenes, but I couldn't remember exactly how. And I did some playing around, and voila, it works.
Yay! This next one comes from James. I've been trying to create some shortcuts or automations about my garage door status. My Q controller connected via Homebridge. Hey, James, what up? Same here. I created a shortcut to check on the door status, let me know what it is, and then prompt me to see if I want to open or close it based on the current status. If, then else. If I run that manually, it works fine. But what I'm trying to do is create an automation that runs at 8 p.m. every day that checks on the status of the garage door, and only if it is open lets me know, and then gives me a prompt to see if I want to close it. Basically, a reminder to warn us if we forgot to close the door. The problem is working is hit or miss. While the automation is only set to do anything if it's open, I still get a pop-up that I have to acknowledge first before it runs. I have asked before running enabled since when I had that turned off, it didn't work at all. But even when I approve it to run, it usually just exits out and acts like the door is closed, even if it's open. I was wondering if you knew of a better way to accomplish this, ideally with something where I only get a notification at 8 p.m. if the door is open and don't have to approve it to run each time. I'd be willing to forego the prompt to close it if I could just get a "you left the garage door open" notification to work automatically and without any manual steps. James. Again, another complicated one. This one perhaps more complicated.
Yeah, so I did some playing around yesterday evening with my patio door. In hindsight, I should have used my kitchen door, which is inside, instead of standing outside and making my neighbors slightly concerned that I had locked myself out. I was asked 3 times by 3 different people if I'd locked myself out. So on the one hand, my neighbors are lovely. On the other hand, I kind of looked like that crazy lady who's standing outside her door for no reason. I ran into the same issues that James did here with, the fact that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. And it's, on the whole, I'm not quite sure what's going on here. I feel like this is a shortcuts issue specifically related to automations and home status of things, because I have found the same kind of issues happening with checking things like the energy usage on Eve smart plugs and other stuff as well. There's not necessarily a great way to fix this inside of shortcuts. However, there are other options. And the one that I'm going to recommend for James here, which we chatted a little bit about beforehand in the Discord, is If This Then That. So If This Then That is an online web service which says, hey, if this, then do that. Now, it used to be very much, this thing happens, do exactly that thing, finished. So long and thanks for all the fish. But now it's not more complicated. It's more powerful. That's the word that I'm looking for here. And one of the things that it has is MyQ integration. MyQ can integrate directly with If This Then That. So my suggestion for James would be to sign up for If This Then That. And he actually had an account a while ago, which is great. So hopefully he can give this a try and create an automation that runs at 8 p.m., checks the status of the garage door, and then sends a notification. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can have the notification delivered. One of them would be through push over. Unfortunately, push bullet is no longer available. The other one is with pushcut automation server. Or, of course, you can also download a message app like Telegram and have it send a message to you. So there's a couple of options there. I'm hoping James is going to find something that works for him and that he'll let us know. I know he's already sent us some feedback for next week's show. So hopefully we'll get to hear back on this one as well.
Yes, it would be good to know. And of course, once again, awesome work there. All right, let us take a quick break before we come back with feedback and our picks of the week. I want to tell you about Casper, who are bringing you this episode of iOS Today. Love your tomorrow with Casper. The new Casper Cooling Collection. Love that alliteration. Has everything you need to help you sleep cool all night long. Casper's mattresses with new snow technology, hyperlight sheets, lightweight duvets, and breathable mattress protector. They're all designed to keep you cool and comfortable so you can't help but love your tomorrow. Tomorrow is a new day. Make the most of it with Casper's new cooling collection. Casper's Wave Hybrid Snow Mattress keeps you cool for 12 plus hours, pulling heat away from your body for sustained temperature regulation, a cool to the touch feeling, and a much improved tomorrow. Better bedding makes for a better tomorrow, which is why Casper's Hyperlight Sheets are designed with an innovative grid weave that lets air flow through for maximum breathability. The lightweight duvet provides optimal temperature control without sacrificing plush comfort, and Casper's breathable mattress protector improves the coolness of the bed even further by allowing air to flow between your body and mattress. All of these are designed to work together to prevent overheating all night, because cooler sleep means better sleep, and better sleep means better tomorrows. I love my Casper everything. Casper sheets, Casper foundation, Casper pillow, Casper mattress. I've just got everything. And all of it helps me sleep better. I love it so much. It's even hard to want to upgrade to new because I'm going, oh man, I'm already surrounded in Casper. But this cooling collection really stands out for me. When it comes time to upgrade, this is where I'll be looking. And as always, Casper offers free shipping and free returns, so no worries there. When it comes to a better night's sleep, Casper's new cooling collection has you covered. Wow, that alliteration. What a copy editor. Focus on tomorrow. Let Casper handle the rest. Explore Casper products, mattresses, sheets, pillows, and more at casper.com/iOS today and use code iOS today for $100 off select mattresses. My goodness, that's a really good deal. Let's go to iOS today for $100 off select mattresses. Exclusions apply. See Casper.com for details. Thanks, Casper, for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today and continuing to sponsor my sleep. I appreciate you. All right, feedback. This comes from Kovar. Kovar writes, so my 87-year-old grandma got her first smartphone, an iPhone SE. She has never used or wanted computers before, only had a cell phone because her children rightfully insisted. It's been really eye-opening. So far, I've taught her to use Siri because the touchscreen and options were very confusing. I've told my parents, she lives in a studio attached to their house, to move every single app except for the phone and FaceTime to the app library, and I put Do Not Disturb on a schedule and showed her how Siri can turn it on before her naps. I think Siri will be a big help. I've always underestimated voice assistants, likely because of their limitations, but I could see the relief in her eyes when she asked it to make a call for her. I'm not sure what else I should do for her. I'm thinking adjusting the font size, but maybe there's some shortcuts to be had to make Siri even easier. Kovar. Well, the first one that comes to mind for me is a shortcut that Matthew Casanelli created. I think it's called Bigify or Largify or something along those lines. And it basically makes the text on the screen larger. And I have that shortcut downloaded, so we might have to link up that one. And so you can turn it on and off depending on what is needed at that moment. But Rosemary, I'm sure you have a few thoughts on what Kovar could do to help their grandmother with using a new iPhone SE.
Yeah. So I'm really glad that Kovar's grandmother is already using Siri because Siri makes things so much easier. But there is one setting that I would love Kovar to go in and change for said grandmother. And that is if you pop into the settings app, then you can make sure that all of your apps land in the app library. Okay. So you don't need your parents to go and do this for her. You can make sure this just happens. So under settings, home screen, there's this option, newly downloaded apps, check app library only, and voila, done. Now you can toggle on and off notification badges depending on whether or not you want notification badges for stuff in the app library. That might be useful for you when you're debugging things because, that sort of stuff happens. I was very lucky. I had a chance to talk to Kovar in the chat room and I suggested a shortcut, which I feel like a lot of people probably ought to set up for their relatives who are a little bit less tech savvy and maybe are getting their first devices, which is a instant call button. So what you would do, I'm just going to pop open the Shortcuts app here and fix that bug. There we go. Had a little display bug there in Shortcuts. So what you can do is you can, if you tap on Shortcuts, then you can see I've got a couple of people suggesting that I call here. So if I tap on, for example, Mandy Orchard, then that's my mom. And I can create a shortcut that just says call mom. So it's going to look a little bit different on iOS 14. But then where you name it, okay, then there is the option to add to the home screen. Now, what you do, if you tap on this icon here, then you can choose a photo. Okay, so I'm going to pick this one of my wrist and a wrist brace earlier today as an excellent representation of my mom. It's not, but that's fine. And now I can add this to my home screen. And look, I now have a little icon right here, which says call mom. Okay. And if you've got the right person's face on that, then whenever they tap that, that's just going to go boom and immediately call that person. And personally, I would love to set my grandmother up with a second home screen of tap buttons for calling specific people, because every so often she calls the wrong person, but she's very happy with her phone as it is. And I recently introduced her to Siri as well. So I think that is one of the great options. The other thing is just to ask her what kind of information she might find useful every so often. So for example, if she wants to know like what the weather is like, then teaching her how to ask Siri what the weather is like is definitely going to be a good option. Not necessarily going to recommend carrot weather here because that's not necessarily going to be super useful. But if you watch some of the HomePod commercials, then things like getting your daily agenda and things like that, that could be very useful. I would also encourage you to show her how to set up reminders via Siri, so that if she needs to remember to, I don't know, for example, take something out of the freezer to cook it for dinner, then she can have a reminder come up on her iPhone at the correct time because she's created it with her voice. I think there's a lot of great options here. Definitely play around with the accessibility settings and set up a slightly larger font size for her. Also teach her about this nifty little tiny button here. Okay, I remember back when I was showing my grandfather how to use his first laptop, it was a Wi-Fi button on the front, and it would always be, my internet's not working. It's the Wi-Fi button on. Yes, it's on. I go down and visit. No, the Wi-Fi button was off every single time. So when her iPhone inevitably stops making a noise, show her there's this little handy one right here, and it's probably just been slipped to the off position. Now, you could get creative with a case and maybe fill that hole with some hot glue or something like that. But the thing is I usually find when I put my iPhone in a case, it changes the silent mode for me.
Yep.
So I think, have maybe a printed piece of paper in a nice large text size of my iPhone is not working. What do I do? I recently had to do this with my shower. My shower was it was overheating the water. That was the problem. The water was coming out too hot. And I looked in the manual and there was my water is too cold, too low pressure, too high pressure, too hot. And it was like, okay, great. I'm following the flow chart. It's like clean the filters. Like, okay, what do I do now? Page 3. Okay, perfect. Done.
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
I feel like having a printed how to solve this problem is very empowering for everybody, like knowing, how to fix your own problems. So she doesn't feel dependent on both Kovar's parents and Kovar themselves is, probably useful. And also just giving her, the option to mess around with things and then say, I did this and it didn't work. Okay. So you've got an idea of what she tried to do before things broke, I think is always quite useful.
That's a really good point. That last one, especially. We also, Rosemary had pointed out that this would be a great episode to talk about in the future, whether it be someone's first time using a smartphone or their first time on iOS, making the switch from Android or, a non-smartphone. So we'll definitely be covering that in the future as well. So Kovar, let us know how things go. And if you yourself come across any shortcuts or suggestions that you gave to your grandmother that were very helpful to her, that anecdote about seeing the relief in her eyes, stuff like that is really helpful to us as well, because we know, some of those things that we might take for granted that are helpful for people. Alrighty, that brings us to the last segment of the show. It's time for App Caps. I'm feeling Christmas in June today.
Oh.
Not quite Christmas in July, but Christmas in June.
I'll do Christmas in July next month then.
Awesome. This is the part of the show where we put on silly hats to honor our app caps. And sometimes we don't choose apps as our choices, like I did this week. But these are apps or products that we are digging right now, whether they're new or we've known about them for a while. It's ones we want to share with you. And Rose, tell us about the cap atop your head and the pick you have made this week.
Well, this is a flat cap, much like my grandfather used to wear when I was about 4. And I know because there's a picture of me wearing a padded waistcoat that he used to wear, his slippers, and one of these flat caps. And I look absolutely adorable and ridiculous all at the same time. Anyway, time to talk about my app cap for the week. And my app cap for this week is an app called Widgeridoo. No, it's not a didgeridoo. It's a widgeridoo. And everybody's kind of gone widgets mad. Widgets are great. I love widgets. But sometimes you want to create your own widgets with custom information on and things like that. And there are some great ways to do that. There's Widgetsmith, there's Widgetpack. But right in the middle of those two is Widgeridoo. So Widgeridoo has, and I'm just going to tap on the first steps one, which I've left all the defaults here. And so basically it allows you to pick a widget size, so small, medium, large, and create blocks in that and put information in there. Okay, so you tap on a block to edit its properties. You tap and hold it for a context menu. There's lots of blocks like dates and batteries, and you can tap edit on the top right to add more blocks. And you can invert colors as well. So I'm just going to start by creating a widget, and it's got some examples. So you can create from a template, and there's 2 horizontal rows. There's 4 in a grid, or there's 2 small ones on the left and a tall one on the right, or completely empty. There's also a widget schedule, and there's pre-made widgets as well. And pre-made widgets are great because you can see some nice things that other people have done. So there's this lovely calendar option, which is in German, so it's Montag, Dienstag, Mittwoch, and so on. There's also a lovely Flip-It clock. I love Flip-It clocks. Unfortunately, clocks are not so great as widgets. But there's this, oh God, I love this battery icon. Apparently, that battery is not super happy. So I've added this widget to my collection. Okay, so now if I pop down, then I can see. And if I have a look, then it's going to give me a bit of information. I'm not going to explain too much about how these work, but you can see if my widget gets bigger, then what's going on there. But you can also create widgets with custom options. So I'm just going to create okay, my Pro subscription is on my other Apple ID. That's all right. There we go. So it's there is a $4.99 in-app subscription for this, where you can then create lots and lots of widgets. And so I'm going to start with a completely empty widget. Okay, so I've got a brand new empty widget here, and I'm going to just call it my widget just to make it obvious. And so you can select dark mode, invert spaces. You can have a specific widget color background. I love purple. So I'm going to do purple. And now if I tap back, then I can add a block. Okay, so I can add columns, I can add rows, but I can also add, for example, a calendar event list. And now I might want a sticky note, which, it's pretty good. And I'm going to add some rows. I'm going to maybe tap this one. And, actually, I don't want this here. I'm going to tap and hold, and I'm going to delete it. And there we go. And I'll just add something down here at the bottom, birthdays from contacts. And now if I tap done, then you can see in the medium view, I've got a whole list of calendar events. And then I've got a friend called Jeannie on the right-hand side, and it's her birthday on Wednesday. And if I go into the small view, then it's, a little bit more squished, and the large view is a bit bigger. But at any time I can edit this, I can add some more options. So I could add some music, tap done, and you can see now I probably need to select some music for this. And I'll just pick a random song here that's near the top because the artist happens to begin with an A. And that's the widget now. So I can go ahead and tap and hold on my iPhone screen. I can swipe past all of my home screens. I have so many, and create a new one. And as you can see, Widgeridoo is right here. And there's a whole, all 3 sizes are right there. So I'm going to add a medium widget. And then if I tap on this, then I can select my widget. Okay. And I'm going to select the one called My Widget and put that there as a medium widget. Wonderful. Now I'm going to add another widgeridoo icon. I'm going to add a small one, and I'm going to select that battery icon that I downloaded. And voila. Apparently my battery is not very happy. Now that's actually incorrect. This phone is fairly well charged, but because I am using sharing options to share my screen, that's a little bit tricky for it to figure out. So I'm not going to blame Widgeridoo for that failure there. But Widgeridoo allows you to create widgets of all of the information that you might possibly want or need, and display them in widget format. And you can stack these widgets. You can do all sorts, and it can integrate with calendar, contacts, notes, reminders, the whole shebang. I love it. It's a great app. Everybody should give it a go, and it's just going to show you information. So it's more customization than something like Widgetsmith. It's less customization than something like Widgetpack, where you have to build everything in shortcuts, but it can integrate with health. So it can show you your steps history, all sorts of things. I really love it. And there's loads of great sample widgets as well. Yeah,
it's a bulletin board to tack onto your phone. Yeah. It's so cool.
Yeah, exactly. And once we get all home screen widgets on our iPads as well, which is coming with iPad OS 15, I'm going to have a whole bunch of widgeridoo widgets right there on my home screen. I love it.
Next level. All right. My app cap this week is not an app. It is instead a pick of the week. And that is because we had some folks ask about, some folks like folio cases for their phones. And for anybody who doesn't know, a folio case is one side has the phone and the other side is kind of a fold over that typically has some slots in it for money and for cards. And with the introduction of MagSafe charging on the newer iPhones, it became difficult to have folio cases because of the way that they were designed, where when it folded over, then it would it could get in the way of being able to MagSafe charge your device. And some wallet cases would just have, for example, the slots on the back. And so then you'd have to take out your cards and your money or whatever you had in there before you could lay it down on the MagSafe charger. Nomad Goods has come out with a folio case that is designed for MagSafe charging, $79.95, and it's made with their excellent Horween leather, or I should say, I'm not sure if it's their leather, but it's leather that they use, Horween, from the Horween Leather Company. And it smells amazing. And over time, it's a vegetable tanned leather. So over time, it gets this really rich look and feel. And so your phone slots into a very nice ruggedized case here. And, you know, you've got your spot for charging and the speakers. On the side, the button is covered up, but there's a nice pressable button here. The slot is available for you to turn on and off, and volume up and volume down are also covered by buttons. Then you can put money, if you use that kind of thing like an animal, into this back slot, and your cards can go into the 3 slots that are available here, and then it just folds over and closes. So yeah, I was talking to Nomad about how we had some questions about folio cases for the modern iPhones, and this is the one that they have that's most recently available. It's very nice. They it's a rugged case, meaning that it will help with fall damage and things like that. So if you do drop it or something, then you are better off than without a case, of course. And there's something to be said for having a flap that covers up the screen of the phone that I had not considered before, where if I put this in a pocket or something, it will be more protected than it would be, obviously, with a case that doesn't have that. And sometimes when glass is hardened or is chemically altered to protect it against drops, then it becomes a little bit easier to scratch. So, there are always trade-offs. And so you may have found in the past that different things would scratch the surface of your iPhone. You'd see lots of scratches. So this is kind of helpful with that. I will say, as a younger person, I've always kind of seen folio cases as an old man case, is specifically male. And that kind of bothered me about using it. But now that I'm using it, I'm kind of like, oh, wow, there's something to this. And I'm doing what I've seen Leo do a lot, which is when he's in places where he doesn't need the case, he'll just pop his phone out of it. And so it kind of serves as your wallet, which I really like, just having one item that's my wallet and everything. But if I'm feeling a little self-conscious about it, I don't necessarily have to use it. That's my own hang up to get over. But I think this is really cool. As far as RFID, it is not an RFID blocker. So if, you'll have to wrap some aluminum foil, or you can just tear some off of your aluminum foil hat and put it on. I'm kidding. I understand that RFID blockers are important. But yeah, it does not have that. So everything else though, super great, beautiful. And it's gross. Maybe for some people, they're like, oh, I'm vegan, but I love the smell of leather. It smells so good. $79.95 from Nomad Goods. And if I remember correctly, it comes in two colors, a rustic brown and a black, available for the 12 Pro Max, the 12 Pro, the 12, and the 12 Mini. So yeah, for me, it's all about having one device one thing that carries all the stuff that I need on a given day. And this does that. So I can just leave my wallet in my bag and take this with me wherever I happen to be going. So yeah, that's my pick this week. And folks, I want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of iOS Today. If you have questions, thoughts, concerns, feedback, wow, why can't I say it? Siri shortcuts, requests, etc., send those to iOStoday@twit.tv. Send those, not send those. And you can also tweet at us with the hashtag AskIOSToday, or message us in the Discord with your questions. Of course, you can get the show by going to twit.tv/iOS and subscribing to the show in audio and video formats. You just click on which one you want. We recommend video for this show. And then you can get it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, basically wherever you go to get your podcasts. And we record the show live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. So you can tune in live and join us by going to twit.tv/live at that time. And we would appreciate it if you came and hung out. I also want to mention, I did mention a Discord, and that is because Club Twit is a thing. What is Club Twit? Well, for $7 a month, you get access to, first of all of our shows ad-free. And so that's really awesome. You can listen to everything without any ads. Then you get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed. It's a feed that has content you won't find anywhere else, outtakes, behind the scenes stuff. And what is my favorite part of it, access to the members only Discord server, where you can join us in sharing GIFs and text and talk and leaving questions and things like that. You just head to twit.tv/clubtwit to check it out. $7 a month. Lastly, as far as announcements go, I'll mention twit.tv/TB, which is Tech Break. Tech Break is a sort of new thing. If you're a subscriber to the Twit Bits feed, then you will have access to this. But twit.tv/TB is how you go to subscribe to it. What is it? Well, hosts and producers wanted a way to be able to share things without a whole lot of overhead. Our shows there's a lot of work that goes into a show and a lot of steps that goes into a show. But what if I get a new product that I really want to share with all of you? This is my way to quickly take a video of an unboxing or share some audio or what have you and publish it directly as soon as I want to the Tech Break feed. So twit.tv/TB, so you can get that news that's breaking now, or those products and gadget reviews and app reviews or whatever it happens to be that we talk about very easily, quickly, and sort of it's loosey-goosey. It's not so formal. Not that our shows are super incredibly formal. Anyway, Rosemary Orchard, if folks want to follow you online and check out all the great work you do, where do they go to do that?
The best place is over at rosemaryorchard.com or with the username Rosemary Orchard on micro.blog or Twitter. What about you, Micah?
I am at Micah Sargent on many a thing, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee, CHIHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the place I'm most active. All right, folks, we have reached the end. We do appreciate you for tuning in to yet another episode of iOS Today. Goodbye. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you are interested in checking out all things smart home and Internet of Things, then you should check out Smart Tech Today, the podcast I, Micah Sargent, do with my co-host Matthew Casanelli. It's all about the smart home and improving your automations.